got another Joy-Con showdown today. In front of me, I have the cracked Nitro Deck, which is a Joy-Con alternative, like dockable thing, which we've covered on the channel. I really like it. I really like the cracked Nitro Deck. But we've got a new contender here now, and that is this. These are the MOBAPAD M6 HD. Now, obviously it's not the same, so maybe not a very fair comparison, but it's definitely something that people looking for a Joy-Con alternative will probably stumble across, and I want to make sure that you make the right choice. Now, of course, we've got independent reviews of both of these on the channel, so if you want to see loads of detail about these, go and watch their respective videos. But yes, I want to put them head to head today, so let me go over the specs. So starting with the cracked Nitro Deck, pop it in here and go ching, like so. So this is a handheld only Joy-Con alternative, but you can actually use this as a wired controller whilst it's docked as well. So on the back here, we've got an input and an output. Now the input is actually to charge the Switch, and the output is actually to use this as a independent controller once it is docked. So you take the Switch out, dock it in the dock, and then you can use this as a wired controller. So that is a feature. We've got Hall effect sensing joysticks just here, so you're not gonna get any drift whatsoever. You've got a really nice D-pad as well. You've got a bunch of features on this. So you've got turbo as well as button swap and macro to these independent back paddles. So there's actually 4 different back paddles here, so it's very like akin to a Steam Deck. You also have this, which is a stand, but it only works like at certain angles. You know, if you want to stand it upright, you just got to put the whole thing upright. And it does have NFC, but not for Amiibo support. This is actually to log it on the Cracked app, where you can collect these different colorways and stuff. I've got like the retro GameCube inspired edition just here, as you can see by that. You can change the thumbsticks as well. I've not got the original ones on here. They are different. You've also got rumble, which you can adjust as well. This has a low latency input, so it's basically a wired controller. So for this to work, you actually have to go into your settings on your Switch first and enable wired Pro controller mode, because that is what this is acting like. And lastly, we also have 6-axis gyro too. And then next up, we've got the MOBAPAD M6 HD, and these are just so crazily spec'd. Like, I can't get over these. Basically, the easiest way to put it is these has everything and more that the original Joy-Cons have. So not only do we have Hall effect sensing joysticks on these as well, we have changeable face plates, which gives you either an octagonal gate just here, like a GameCube style, or a circular gate, so you can just remove these. It's just a magnet that goes on and off, and then you can change them over essentially. So you've got that. You've also got a changeable D-pad, so you can either have a standard traditional D-pad, or you can have like an Xbox style dome dish. These also have back paddles, but only one on either side. Because these are independent as Joy-Cons, you can only program like left side to left side and right side to right side, whereas with the Cracked, because it's one big unit, you can program like anything over this side to the left side's back paddles, whereas with these, if you want to like remap a button, it's got to be from this side to this side, that side to that side. Does that make sense? So with those back paddles, you've got button swap and macro abilities as well, and you actually have turbo on this too. We also have 6-axis gyro, and these have HD rumble, actual HD rumble, just like the official Joy-Cons. We've got mechanical Omron switches in the face buttons and the shoulders and triggers. So Omron switches are actually what are used in gaming mice, and they have a 5 to 10 million click lifespan, as opposed to the 1 to 2 million click lifespan of like normal buttons like found in these. But they have an audible click because it is just a mouse switch, right? So there is a click that makes them extremely fast to actuate and very quick to return. They are highly accurate. They are brilliant. And these have Amiibo support. So these actually have true NFC. Of course, they are wireless. These have a 17-hour battery life, which is huge. There's no USB ports or anything like this on these. You actually dock them onto the Switch, and then it charges via the Switch. The MOBAPAD M6 HD and S also have an app that you can download to change the dead zone and all that kind of stuff on the sticks and everything. Now, I think I've covered all the specifications. If I've forgotten anything, go and watch the videos on each of these and I go through in more detail. So let's start with comfort, which is one of the big things. So I'm gonna actually just take the Switch out of here. So to do so with the Nitro Deck, you lift this and then slide the Switch out, and I'm gonna pop these on here. Now, these the MOBAPAD are actually quite stiff to put on the Switch, but I think they might free up over time. But to be perfectly honest, I don't mind overly a lot. Now with this one, it's very smooth to take in and out. Now some people were actually complaining that the back was scratching their Switches, but I've not really had an issue with that myself. But in terms of comfort and everything, you can straight away see the difference in sort of design here. The Nitro Deck is very compact and straight up and down, very similar to the Joy-Cons. It's just very straight up and down on the sides just here, whereas the MOBAPAD are kicked out at an angle like an arrow, kind of akin to like an Xbox controller shape, which also has asymmetrical joystick layout, right? So one is down here and the other's up there, which on the Joy-Cons is horribly uncomfortable because your hands are cramped over. This right stick needs to be over here for it to be ergonomic, right? Otherwise you're gonna get like cramp over here. I don't find these comfortable at all. So with these just here, it is actually kicked out enough for that right stick to be really ergonomic, like extremely ergonomic. I can play like this and play Prince of Persia here really, really easily. Like I love this. But first person shooters or anything like this is a perfect placement of that right stick. Extremely good. The other thing is, and I will come back over to the Nitro Deck in a second, but look at the size difference. So the Nitro Deck's taller, but the MOBAPAD here has more of a sort of grip on it. This is quite fat on the base, whereas the MOBAPAD goes all the way down into the Switch's screen just there, which makes it extremely comfortable to hold. You know, like if I hold it up, you probably can't see it anyway, but it's really, really, really nice to hold. Like this just feels lovely. They have nailed it. They really have. Whereas with this one, it's more like kind of sits in your hand because there's not as much grip there. There is grip, but it's not as pronounced as the MOBAPAD just down here. But the biggest con with the Nitro Deck, and this is the thing that everyone else has had an issue with, and yeah, I have an issue with it too, but I can kind of overlook it, is that right stick placement. Now, it's directly under the face buttons, which makes it exactly the same as the Joy-Cons, right? So the Joy-Cons have that horrible placement, and sadly, the Nitro Deck has the same thing. If I hold it in my hands like this is extremely uncomfortable to get to. I have to like adorn like a different grip, adorn, one or the other, down here so that my hand kind of lightly holds it so that I can get my thumb onto this to then actually be able to move it around. Now, in use, if you're only using this isn't really an issue. Like I find if I just lightly hold it on the side just there and play like this is fine, but it's not ideal. Whereas with the MOBAPAD just here, like once you've felt the MOBAPAD, you can't go back. Like you just can't go back. It just feels so much nicer. But yeah, it is wider as well, of course. So that is something to take note of. But ergonomically, the MOBAPADs win. Like they just win. They are way more ergonomic than the Nitro Deck. Again, if we go top down, you can see sort of like the thickness as well difference just here. But yeah, they are more ergonomic. I really like the MOBAPAD just here in terms of feel. Now for some of you, that might be it. That might have sold you right away on the MOBAPADs over the Nitro Deck, but I'm gonna keep going with my comparisons anyway. So the joysticks, they both have Hall effect sensing joysticks, which means they will not get drift. They're highly accurate, less dead zone, blah, 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 blah. They're brilliant. And they both have changeable thumbstick caps, so you can just pull them off and replace them. Cracked actually have their own packs, which give you different ones. The MOBAPAD currently do not, but you can use them from some of their other controllers, like the Chitu HD as well. So if you've got one of their controllers, you can swap it over. But yeah, so the thumbsticks themselves are really, really nice. Like I like these a lot. They are really good thumbsticks, and that's the same on both of them. But again, I still prefer the MOBAPAD because they've got this really nice, slightly smaller feeling thumbstick, which is just really nice texture. It's got a lovely rubber finish on it, a really nice grip around the sides. And yeah, I mean, again, that's not really a win to either because you can swap both of them out, so you could potentially find one that you like better, but they are both great. They both have perfect joysticks. In terms of like feel, I'd say the Nitro Deck's ones feel a little bit looser, so there's a little bit more friction. They're a bit firmer on the MOBAPADs, and I do slightly prefer that. Face button wise, let's have a look at that. I know which one I prefer already. But the cracked Nitro Deck just here has standard face buttons. They're really nice. I like them quite a lot. They're quite small, they are glossy, they are domed, but I actually quite like these. There's no issue with them. There's no pre or post travel really. There is a little bit of post travel, but not like loads. But I've never had an issue with these. They're quite nice. The ones on the MOBAPAD though, because of those Omron mechanical switches, they are perfect. They are really good. Super quick to actuate, super quick to return, very accurate, longer lifespan. I just love how these feel. Like they feel perfect. They really, really do. The only issue here is if you've got like sensory issues with sound, this might be an issue for you because they're mechanical switches like a mouse. It goes like a maraca. Like, listen. Very consistent with one another though, whereas the cracked, not as annoying. So if you've got a partner that doesn't like noises like mine, sorry Christina, but you have to listen to the MOBAPAD because I really like these. But yeah, so if you've got someone that doesn't like the sound, this might be a negative, but in terms of functionality, these are better. These are the Omron switches, much better. And they are also found on the shoulder buttons and the triggers as well. So we've got mechanical Omron switches in both of these, again with that 5 to 10 million click lifespan, whereas these do not. Now, the difference here actually is the cracked Nitro Deck has analog triggers. So they've got Hall effect analog triggers. The only issue with that is there's like one game, there's actually a few, but there's one main one, Grid or Grip or whatever it's called, which uses analog triggers on the Switch. Everything else doesn't actually use analog triggers, so it's kind of a wasted feature. Whereas with the MOBAPAD, they have these Omron switches, the digital ones, they're very quick. There's no like pushing it down. Like with this, you've got to push it all the way down. You know, it's quick to actuate anyway, and you can actually, with the cracked one, you can change the depth in which it like actuates. So there's a button combination that you can change how quickly it inputs your press. But, you know, you don't really need it. Whereas with the MOBAPAD just here, very quick triggers on the back. But the bumpers, I've said this in all my videos about these, there's quite a bit of pre and post travel on the bumpers just here. And in use, you don't really notice it because I tend to hold it like this and then I just press right in the top corner, and that's very, very quick. You know, there's not much pre or post travel, but if you're using it on the sides, there's quite a lot of wiggle room there. Doesn't really bother me when I'm actually playing it, but it's there. Whereas on the cracked, it's just a digital trigger. These do feel a little bit looser though, so they feel great. There's nothing wrong with these, but they do feel like a little bit looser in terms of like the button itself. Like the shell of it just feels a little bit looser, whereas this one is nice and in there, but it just is a little bit more springy. Back paddles, I would say the Nitro Deck wins because you've got more of them. And you can actually program anything from this side to this side on the back. You know, because it's just one big controller, you can basically swap any of the buttons or whatever out onto these back paddles. So I really like having 4 because on certain games you can just, you know, change them over. Whereas on the MOBAPAD just here, you've only got 1 on both sides, and you can only have the right side to that one and the left side to that one because they are independent standalone. They cannot like send the data between themselves. So that is a bit of a negative for the MOBAPAD. But the MOBAPAD has turbo, macro, and macro turbo. So the MOBAPAD actually has true macro, as well as having button swap. And yes, you basically have that with the Nitro Deck, but there's one downside. And I said to Cracked right away that the macro's broken, because with macro, the whole kind of point is that you want to record a period of time, right? So you want to press A, wait, A, left, right, X, X, Y. Then when you play that macro, you want it to do the same time frame, right? The cracked Nitro Deck, even though it has macro, it doesn't do this, and I don't know why. I questioned them on it, and they said, oh, well, if people request it, maybe we'll do it in a firmware update. They did a firmware update, but didn't address this, so it's still the same. So if you program a macro with the Nitro Deck and press that button, it just goes blah, and spams all the buttons all at once. So it'll be like AXYZ, it will just go mental at once. It'll do all button inputs immediately. So in my opinion, that kind of defeats the point of a macro because you want it to be timed, right? So that straight away goes to the MOBAPAD because this wins, because this has true macro. You can actually do a macro input, and then when you play it, it does the timed sequence to replay that. And if you double press the back pedal that you've assigned the macro to, it will then turbo it. So it will keep looping that macro for you, you know, it'll just keep going on and on and on. So to me, this wins because of the macro functionality, but the Cracked just here does win for the extra back paddles and the fact that you can button swap and stuff from anywhere to it. But they both have true button swap where if you assign a button to the back paddle, it actually fully acts like that button. So if you do like a long press, it will do a long press move. If you do a short press, it will do a short press move. So they both win there. Now let's look at the D-pad. So the Cracked Nitro Deck D-pad just here, I really like this D-pad. I think it's very good. I think the only thing that's better than this is the Retroflag version, you know, the dockable one that has a brilliant D-pad, but this one still has a very nice D-pad. I like the D-pad on this, but with the MOBAPAD just here, this has a really good D-pad. Like, and comparing them now between each other, I still think I actually prefer, oh man, this is really difficult because they're different. The Cracked Nitro Deck one isn't clicky. It rolls around nicely, but it's quite small in feel, you know, like it's quite small. Whereas with the MOBAPAD one, it's clicky. So you've got a clicky D-pad, but it rolls really, really nicely. Like I like that a lot. It feels really good. And of course, we've got the changeable style on the top. So if I take this off and sort of ping off the D-pad just there, you can then have this style. So if you're doing fighting games or whatever and you really want to roll around, I've got to give it to the MOBAPAD, I think, because it's got that customizable different face on it. You know, you've got the normal D-pad or you've got the circular one. I actually think I'm going to give it to this because I really like the feel of this one. But honestly, in terms of feel, they're probably more of a tie. I just feel like you've got more choice with this one. And now the rumble on the Cracked Nitro Deck is not very good. It's very, very harsh. Just feels a bit cheap. Like, I don't really like it. I actually ended up turning off rumble in games when I started playing Mario Wonder and I was using this. I just turned off rumble because it's just like, you know, it's like just too intense. I didn't really like it. Whereas with this one, it's got HD rumble. This actually has HD rumble, like not official, but it's got Alps HD rumble motors. So it's the same as the Joy-Cons, the official Joy-Cons. This actually has HD rumble where it can do all kinds of crazy stuff and it feels great. It's more subtle. It's not as, you know, like it just feels really, really good. I massively prefer the rumble in this, but you can adjust the rumble in the Nitro Deck, but it's just very subtle. But yeah, I wouldn't bother. The rumble's way better in this. Now there's one other thing that you must know, and that is battery life. The Cracked here does not have its own battery. This is a leech. So what I mean by that is it leeches the battery from your Switch. So this will use more battery to power this as well as the Switch, right? So you're gonna be getting less battery life than normal. Whereas obviously with the Joy-Cons, well then you're gonna get extra battery life because these both have independent batteries inside them. And that is the same with the MOBAPAD. The MOBAPAD, these have an expected life of 17 hours battery life. So you've got the Switch battery life plus the 17-hour battery life of the controllers. So these are not leeches because they have batteries in them, right? So you're gonna get more battery life out of the Switch paired with the MOBAPADs than you will with the Cracked because this will just leech the power from it. Albeit it will be a small amount of power, it will still be leeching power. And then the other thing is, of course, these are independent. So these are actually independent Joy-Cons. So you can take these off and you can use these as standard Joy-Cons. You can use these for motion control. You know, these have actual proper motion control where you can use these independently. They can also be used as standard, you know, side separate style Joy-Cons if you want to play with a friend, whereas you can't with the Nitro Deck, you know? So yeah, there's quite a lot of differences going on here, and it was maybe a little unfair for me to compare because one's not actually Joy-Cons, but it's still a Joy-Con alternative, right? So anyway, what do you think? Personally, I'm gonna say it. I prefer the MOBAPADs. The MOBAPADs win for me. better ergonomics, HD rumble, they've got mechanical Omron switches, they've got adjustable faceplates with octagonal gates or circular gates, they're independent, you know, they've got 17 hours battery life. I love the D-pad, the joysticks are to die for. These are perfect. They've got NFC. I can't really see anything wrong with these. They are really, really good. The only kind of downside is that slight sort of resistance when you're sliding them onto the Switch, and also the pre and post travel of the bumpers, not the triggers. So yeah, that's the only kind of negatives here. With the cracked Nitro Deck, I do love the Nitro Deck. So I really like this, but that ergonomic sort of non-ergonomics of that right side, it just lets it down massively, and the fact that it doesn't have HD rumble as well, that is a bit of a downside. And NFC, I don't really care for NFC, but you know, it would have been nice to have it. But yeah, so I really like the cracked Nitro Deck still, but for me, the winners are the MOBAPAD M6 HD. They also have little brothers as well, the M6 S, so go and check my video out of those as well. But let me know what your thoughts are. Do you love the Nitro Deck? Do you love the MOBAPADs? Or just let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Also, make sure you like this video, subscribe, become a member, and then you can see these videos early, up to a week early. And check out mine and AJ's podcast over here where we talk about all things gaming, and check out the reviews of the Nitro Deck and the M6 and all that good stuff over my face right now. Bye!